alive on the Mounjaro. It's on the pen alive with your host David Knapp.
Thank you, Clap Track, and happy Thursday night. I'm your host, Dave Knapp, man on the Mounjaro. That's why I'm here. You and all of you friends watching are on the pen. That's why you're here. Wegovy, Saxenda, Victoza, Trulicity, Mounjaro, Zepbound, Ozempic. I don't think I ever say Ozempic, but maybe you're on Ozempic. Compound for however much longer. That pen, that's what we talk about here at On the Pen. Each week, we bring you the news. The news that flows out about obesity medicine either comes from the medical world or it comes from the investor world. And we take all that information that flows. And now we have connections within the industry. So we even have our own inside information that flows as well. And we bring that to you in a patient-centric way, in a way that allows you to be empowered with information and have more competent and confident conversations with your medical providing team. That's what we do at On the Pen. And staggeringly, we have thousands of people that watch our videos every week, but over half of you sometimes aren't subscribed. So hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed, or follow along depending on which platform that you're watching on, and hit the thumbs up button, because that's just going to introduce more friends to the content that we make here at On the Pen. But how are you? Happy Thursday night. It is so good to be here with you each and every week. It is one of the bright spots in my week. This is episode 103. I cannot believe that we've been doing this for 103 episodes. We have been so deeply committed to this community and to doing this every week. And I'm so thankful that you guys continue to show up and show out. And part of the reason that you continue to show up and show out is because it's not just this ugly mug facing you every week. We've got some great contributors to the show now. We've got Allie, Fit Flavor Fun, who brings us our Reddit recap every single week. We have our friend Corey, who brings us our Maintenance Minute every single week. And we always have a special guest. Last week, we had Dr. Simi Lee. Dr. Simi Lee is a cardiologist and just a wonderful, brilliant advocate for patients living with obesity and dealing with issues of the heart. It was so great to hear from her last week. And this week, we have Mike on a mission. Mike Donnelly-Boylen is here to share a little bit about his mission to better health, to content creation about GLP-1s. And I'm super friends, I am so excited for this conversation. It's always a real great joy for me to be able to introduce members of the TikTok community to YouTube, right? Allie has been over here on YouTube for a while, but Corey came from YouTube. Corey came from TikTok. Sabrina, she does our Friday Night Live panels every other Friday night here on this channel now. She came from TikTok, and then Mike came from TikTok as well. So we're just blending the worlds of the GLP-1 worlds from the different platforms over here on YouTube. And I'm just so thrilled to introduce tonight's guest, Mike Donnelly-Boylen, who will be sharing with y'all tonight. So give Mike some love in the chat, and give Sabrina and Allie and Corey some love in the chat. I know y'all already are. So let's get into it. We're going to do a little bit of housekeeping tonight, and then we're just going to get right into the contributions from the ladies. We're going to talk maybe a little bit about what's going on in that OFA FDA trial, but let's do a little bit of housekeeping to start the show off tonight, shall we? If I can get the bumper. Housekeeping. You want Mintful pillow? It is another great week in the On the Pen world. I just, on a personal journey, have had kind of a rough go the last month and a half or so. I told you I kind of got out of the habit of taking the Can't Wait that I had been taking. I don't know why, but I've been back on that. I've been really buckling down and really tracking and just being very intentional, trying to make sure that I'm doing some things that I don't normally do, right? I'm just making sure I'm getting a bunch of greens in. If I'm not eating a salad, I'm definitely throwing a couple of cups of spinach in the blender with maybe a banana and some strawberries and some low calorie yogurt, just something to get the healthy stuff down. And I'm feeling better because I'm doing that and I'm being intentional, and the scales started to move back in the right direction. So that's always a win. I mean, everybody talks about non-scale victories, but when you're stuck as a slow responder to a GLP-1, you'll definitely celebrate the scale victories when they come. So I've been very, very, very happy to kind of see that go the other way and to just be feeling better in general. Of course, this has been a wild ride with the book as well. We lost the book a couple of weeks ago. We got it back. Decoding GLP-1 is back at glpbook.com. So thank you to those who helped get us back on the map. Like it has actually been amazing. We've stayed at the top of the diabetes charts for Decoding GLP-1, diet and fitness short reads. We've been staying steady, almost number one, almost every day for that. So if you haven't picked up your copy, you can pick that up. It's going to be $10 for the rest of this week, and then it goes back up to $14.99. So if you haven't picked it up, now is an excellent chance to do that. And we're going to be giving you an opportunity to be getting the book directly from our website, right? A signed copy with a personal inscription. That option will be coming later this week. So check out glpbook.com if you want to get it today from Amazon, or you'll be able to get a signed copy with an inscription from our website here in the coming days as well. So thank you for everyone who helped us get that back. I know I've mentioned it last week too, but I always feel like it's worth mentioning again, because I don't think we would have got that thing back if it wasn't for you. And you all know that this was a big heartfelt. I poured myself into this book. So it was really, really dejecting week that I had lost it, and very frustrating. One of the things that we're going to jump into before we get to the maintenance minute and the Reddit recap is just sort of what I teased at the outset. We want to talk a little bit about what's going on with the OFA and the FDA, where we sit with compounded medications. Now, we did learn this past week that Eli Lilly already did release the 7.5 and the 10 milligrams of the Zepbound vials. I think it's great. $499, $500. You got to make sure you fill it within 45 days to maintain that price. But I love seeing Eli Lilly circumvent the PBMs. I love seeing that. I think that is an incredibly brilliant play that you haven't seen any other pharmaceutical company do, to my knowledge, to completely circumvent the PBM system. I think is great. Of course, we would love to see these more affordable, more accessible. But for all things considered, when you consider all the nuance involved of a publicly traded company, because I always say, like, people are like, oh, we want them to be cheaper. Yeah, we all do. There's not a single person in this community that doesn't want to see these drugs cheaper and more accessible. When you consider a publicly traded company, if they lowered the price to $200, then the reality is it goes right back on the shortage list, because more and more people can afford it. They can't make enough to keep up. And then essentially what would happen is they would oust their CEO, get somebody else in there, jack the price back up, control the supply. I mean, you got to consider like all the factors that they're trying to balance here as a publicly traded company inside of a broken system. I for one, applaud the concept of moving around the PBMs. We do have a ton more work to go at making these more affordable, more accessible. But that is more of a system change than it is a single drug company change. But I was excited to see the vials released. Now, on the topic of compounds, because there are many, many hundreds of thousands that rely on compounds, we saw two major things happen this week. We saw Eli Lilly, of course, released the vials at the same time. We saw semaglutide come off the shortage list last Friday. The OFA on Monday files an immediate lawsuit over the compound semaglutide. So they're suing the FDA again over semaglutide. On the Tirzepatide trial side of things, we saw the final response from the OFA on the issue of the preliminary injunction, which could temporarily hold off the FDA from enforcing anything on compounds for the duration of this trial. Now, this at this point in the trial, it's completely in the judge's hands. The OFA made their statement in their response to the FDA, tons of redactions, basically saying that the FDA relied only on Eli Lilly's numbers that they provided to make their determination, and that those numbers may not have been wholly representative of the demand and their ability to meet it. But at the end of the day, it just rests in the judge's hands. And so any day he could issue a ruling on that preliminary injunction. I think he will in the next couple of days. The other option is he could set a timetable for oral arguments. And this could go to oral arguments. If it does that, it definitely prolongs this thing a little bit longer. But at the end of the day, what we're likely to see, and this is just my opinion and speculation based upon what I know about this industry, having followed it very, very closely for the last couple of years, is I do believe that this is going to fall the way of the FDA and Eli Lilly, which will put a damper on compounding. It will continue in custom dosing and custom formulations, but to the extent that Eli Lilly and the FDA don't enforce certain things over prescribers and compound pharmacies, it's going to be an interesting thing to watch, right? And so just an uncertain time for everyone. And so we'll continue to cover it very closely here. We cover it very close at onthepen.com. That's why I strongly encourage you to go over there, sign up for email alerts. Just scroll to the bottom of any page at onthepen.com, and there's just a name, first name, last name, email, submit, and then you're signed up. And then you'll never miss an update in GLP-1 news. So hope that you'll do that. If you are just joining here, welcome. Thanks for being here. We got a great show lined up for you tonight. We've got tons to talk about with Mike on a mission. Mike Donnelly-Boylen is here tonight. And so we'll get into that all here in just a moment. But we're going to do Corey's maintenance minute before we jump into all that.
Hi, I'm Corey. Deciding to seek therapy after losing weight is one of the most empowering steps you can take for your overall well-being. Weight loss, especially with the help of GLP-1 medications, is often just the start of a much deeper journey. For many, obesity isn't just about the physical. It's tied to years of stigma, trauma, and complex emotions. Therapy provides the space to unpack these layers and truly heal. One key area is addressing body image. Even after reaching a healthier weight, it's common to feel disconnected from how you look or struggle with lingering self-doubt. Therapy helps you shift from critiquing your body to appreciating it for what it does for you every day. Weight loss can also change how you see yourself and how others interact with you. There's a lot to navigate: relationships, confidence, and societal expectations. Therapy supports you in adapting to these changes while staying grounded in your identity. If you faced judgment or bullying in the past because of your weight, you know how deeply those experiences can scar. Processing those moments and understanding their impact is critical for moving forward. At the same time, it's important to avoid the traps of diet culture. Therapy reinforces your focus on nourishing your body and maintaining healthy habits, instead of slipping into restrictive or perfectionist patterns. It also helps you create healthier ways to cope with triggers like stress or emotional lows, without turning to food. Finally, therapy is a chance to celebrate how far you've come. So many of us forget to pause and recognize our own strength. A therapist can help guide you practice self-compassion and build confidence, setting you up for sustainable success. Taking this step isn't just about maintaining your weight. It's about healing and creating a life where you feel emotionally, mentally, and physically free. Therapy helps you thrive in ways that go far beyond the scale. If you're unsure where to start, there are free online therapy resources available to help. Platforms like 7 Cups, BetterHelp's financial aid options, and Open Path Collective offer accessible support. Additionally, Crisis Text Line and Mental Health America provide free, immediate assistance for those in need. Don't hesitate to take advantage of these tools. They're here to support you on your journey to healing. Healing isn't just about where you've been. It's about where you're going. Choosing to prioritize your mental and emotional well-being is an act of self-care and self-respect. You are not defined by your past struggles, and you don't have to carry the weight of old wounds alone. Therapy is not about fixing you. It's about freeing you, empowering you to live with confidence, peace, and joy. You deserve to feel whole, to embrace the person you've worked so hard to become, and to move forward with strength and self-compassion. Your journey doesn't end with weight loss. It continues with healing, growth, and the life you were always meant to live. And that is your Maintenance Minute.
What a word from our friend Corey. Now, when it comes to the longevity of a journey towards better health, there is nothing more important than addressing what goes on mentally. It's just as important as addressing the broken biology that you're living with when you're living with metabolic disease. Addressing what's going on up here and how we deal with and process all that is extremely important. And I think something that doesn't get talked about often enough. And so thank you, Corey, for bringing a word to the community tonight on reaching out and getting some help, getting some therapy to help walk you through. I love the comment about self-compassion. Definitely something that I struggle with in a big way. I am my own worst critic when it comes to absolutely everything in life. And my journey towards better health is absolutely no exception to that. And so I just really appreciate Corey for bringing that word tonight to the community. Make sure you give Corey some love in the chat. I always like to take a moment to recognize the sponsor of our show, which is Row. Row is our partner here. I am a community advisor to Row. I get to speak to Row on behalf of the community as it relates to their offerings and the different things that they bring to the community. I have really enjoyed this partnership over the last 6 months. Row has a program called Row Body for those of you looking to get access to these medications like GLP-1s that can absolutely change people's lives. We're going to hear from Mike, our community member here tonight, and we're going to hear how this has changed his life. It could potentially change your life too. And if you want to get started, you can check out the Row Body program. They have an amazing program, helps patients lose 15 to 20% of their body weight in a year when coupled with lifestyle modifications and appropriately prescribed medications. It's just such a wonderful platform. And hey, because of all the craziness going on right now with accessibility and the question marks around the future of compounded medications, nobody does it better than Row when it comes to getting those prior authorizations approved, getting the appeals approved, the tier exemptions, all of the things that go into fighting for coverage. Row is the top of the list. It's one of the reasons that we partner with them. So check out row.co/OTP to learn more about their Row Body program. And if you get a chance to talk to anybody from Row or leave them a message on their website, let them know how much you appreciate the fact that they sponsor this show that we do each and every week. Thank you to our friends at Row. We got a wonderful Reddit recap coming in from our friend Allie at Fit Flavor Fun. Let me know in the comments if you're following Allie over here on YouTube. If you are not, you are 100% missing out. Some of the most delightful GLP-1 content out there. She is witty, she is fun, and she is, dare I say, become a dear friend to me. And so I love Allie. I love that she's contributing over here to On the Pen. So let's hear a little bit from Allie tonight in her Reddit recap.
Last meal. The big hoorah. The final party before the extravaganza. The last of the meals before going to the prison that is your weight loss journey. The Reddit threads were blowing up this week about a lot of newbies that are coming onto the GLP-1 scene, and they were looking for recommendations on what to eat for their last meal before they started a GLP-1. Now, as somebody who's been on a GLP-1 med for well over a year now, I completely understand where this thought process comes from. It's actually very common, and I think that it's really been ingrained in us, over the years because of diet culture. This was a big thing with bariatric surgery, right? It's like, you got to get in that one last fast food hurrah before you buckle down and make yourself miserable. Well, one of the things that we're doing on a GLP-1 journey is healing our relationship with food. And one of the ways that you do that as you learn on your health quest is you really start looking at food differently, right? There is no good food and bad food. There is only food. There is calorie-dense food, and there is nutritious food. There is sometimes food, and there is all the time food, right? There's prioritizing protein, and there's making sure that you're in your calorie deficit, right? Whatever phase of your health journey you happen to be in, your relationship with food is incredibly important. And this idea of a last hurrah before you head off to prison, right, is really showcasing how far people who are on this GLP-1 health journey have come. Because there is no last hurrah. I've lost 112 pounds and I still eat McDonald's. But you find over time that what you learn is that not only does food not have that control over you like it did before, but that you can integrate the foods that you like to enjoy in a much more reasonable way. And so I encourage you to really take a look at your relationship with food. Think about what you're eating and what it's doing for you and what you could add to make it a more nutritious meal. You don't have to give up your favorite foods, but learning to eat appropriate portion sizes, eat things that are calorie dense in moderation, right? These are effective long-term skills that can help you if your goal is to lose weight on a GLP-1. This is Allie signing off on your Reddit recap.
Thank you, Allie. Lots to unpack there. So we have been so ingrained with the idea of diet culture and restriction that many of us have prescribed a moral value to different foods. And I think the one thing that kept jumping out to me, something that's reported often by the community as I was listening to Allie, is these folks that are just starting the medication who are jumping over to Reddit for community and to get advice and all that. I think what the astounding thing that they don't realize that they're going to find is that these medicines for many, many people, not everybody, but for many, many people, have a way of naturally breaking that, that relationship with food, right? In the sense that you can enjoy the foods that you once prescribed this immoral value to, and you can eat it in a moderate sized portion and feel full like a normal person. And I think what many people will find as they jump into these medications, it certainly was the case for me, was that the foods that I used to overeat and overindulge in no longer had that control. And so you could eat just one. You could enjoy a chip without enjoying a bag of chips. You could enjoy a couple of cookies without enjoying a whole sleeve of cookies. And so these medications are really helping to unravel diet culture, which is why you see such resistance to it from different sectors of the economy that have thrived for now a generation off of that wiring that was done to so many people in terms of diet culture. And so I just really appreciate that word. And I think that is a really, really great advice to give. And I know that there's probably some amens in the chat on that tonight. So thank you, Allie, for this week's Reddit recap. Always appreciate that. And I think I forgot to throw her thing up. So I just want to remind you that you can follow Allie at Fit Flavor Fun over here on YouTube. And I believe she's over on TikTok under the same handle, but I don't know about anywhere else. But Fit Flavor Fun. I know that she also has a a Facebook group as well. I think it's the No Drama GLP-1 group. But definitely check Allie out, and thank Allie in the chat for bringing us that word tonight, which brings us to our favorite time of the show when we bring in our hot channel, none hotter than tonight's channel, Mr. Mike Donnelly-Boylen. Mike on a mission. Let's welcome him in together.
Hot channel.
Mike, welcome, buddy.
Hi, Dave. How you doing?
We're doing it. Finally, this has been a long time coming. I appreciate you being here. Welcome.
Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Mike, for everyone who is in the comments, if you don't know, is the nice guy on GLP. I was conversing with Mike a little bit before we came on the show tonight, and I was telling Mike's tone, cadence, and the let's say the demeanor that he brings to his TikTok content has not changed since the first video I saw of Mike's, which I still remember. And I remember having the same feeling about Mike that I do as we sit here today, that this is just a good-hearted, compassionate human being. And so, Mike, I'm excited to dive into your journey a little bit tonight.
Sure.
And eager to hear you share about where you have come from. So let's first start, if you don't mind, just sharing a little bit about what has your journey living in a larger body looked like for you. Like, just give us, like, at what point in your life did you notice, like, hey, I'm maybe a little bit heavier than the people around me? Did you notice? Was it pointed out to you? What's your story?
So, yeah, I'm probably preface this by saying, I'm an Irish Catholic from Boston. And so literally I remember my first memory of realizing I was chubby at my first communion, where one of my great aunts like patted my belly and said, like, what's going on here? And it resonated with me because I'm from a family of 3 boys, right? A family of jocks. My dad was, Mr. Sports. One of my brothers had a 6-pack since the day he came out of, the day he was born. And my mother's side of the family carried obesity. And her grandmother and her grandfather both lost their legs to diabetes. And I sort of inherited that gene. And I think my aunt was spotting what she knew in her family, which was a large, large family, and could see that I had gotten that gene. And so it changed my entire relationship with food the moment that I realized that. I started really having a hard time figuring out what to do and what to eat. I was seeing a doctor about my weight by the time I was 8 or 9. I wasn't the biggest kid in class, but I was a chubby kid, right? And it was like that throughout life. I was surrounded by jocks. I went to a very jock college, Notre Dame. Like, I was surrounded by jocks, and I was always the chubby kid.
So that it's interesting that you bring up the interaction with your family members, because I definitely that resonates with me. And I don't know, for those watching tonight or listening on the podcast, if you can remember a point where it was pointed out to you. And that's why I framed the question that way, because it seems like for many of us, it really, the first time maybe that we realized that we were different is because it was pointed out to us, and maybe even by somebody that we know and love. And I know that that was certainly the case for me as well. I did definitely notice, I have a similar story where my siblings all look like my dad. If you put all of I have 1 brother and 2 sisters. And if you look at all of them, they're all brown eyes, dark hair. And here I was, this little blonde haired, blue eyed kid. And I got the genetics from my mother's side of the family, where there's diabetes and obesity and dementia and Alzheimer's and like sort of all the things. And I look just like my cousins on that side, who also struggle with obesity, or at least several of them do. And then you have my dad's side of the family, where literally none of my cousins struggle with their weight, But it was like, it was pointed out to me young, but I also noticed too, like the people around me, like I have this thing down here and like you have all these little squares on your stomach. I don't have those. I love that you said your brother like came out with a six pack. He's like got a fetus six pack.
Oh yeah, that was
insane.
like, it was insane. I mean, I literally had a doctor. We saw the same doctor at one point, well into our 20s, and I had a doctor comment like, "Why couldn't I look like my brother?"
Oh my gosh, you're kidding me.
Nope.
It's crazy how much like shame and guilt for people also comes from doctors. If I had $1 for every time somebody told me it was my doctor that really made me feel terrible. And thank God it's changing, like it'd be one thing if there had been no progress over our lifetime, but I do think of like, and we could get into this a little bit later, but I do think of doctors like the doctor we had on last week, Dr. Simi Lee, like
My
super
doctor.
compassionate doctors, right?
Yep.
That do get it. And so it is great to see at least the conversation and the narrative is starting to change. So why don't you just walk me through, if you don't mind, like what are some of the things that you tried as a young man and then maybe early on in an early adulthood to try to sort of change?
Yeah. I mean, I was in Weight Watchers by the age of 14. My set weight, I would say by college was sitting around 280 or so, around where I am now. And at one point I was able to deprive myself enough that I could get myself down to 227. I can tell you the exact number. And that was around 9/11. And 9/11 sort of, like many times when people are on these sort of yo-yo diets, you get hit by a life thing that happens, and the next thing you know,
you're off the rails.
Ends out, right? And you go back up even probably further than when you started. I did Weight Watchers. I walked miles and miles and miles. I deprived myself. I did everything under the sun. I did soup diets, you name it, all in an effort to combat this, and feeling real guilt and shame around the fact that I wasn't successful, right? Yeah. That everyone else around me could do this and I couldn't.
Mike, did you put that on yourself more, or was it coming from external forces, or is it a combination?
That's definitely a combo. Yeah, it's definitely a combo. I mean, I put a lot on myself, but when you're surrounded by people who their bodies act differently, they assume differently. They always assume they know what's going on in your mind, in your body, in your head. That's just the way we are as humans.
Yeah, it's like every other human experience. You just assume everybody experiences it the same way.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's that. I mean, it's so. I don't know what the word is. It's so helpful to share stories. That's why I love Sabrina's panel that she does every week, because you hear like a little bit of this from like 5 people.
Her panels have changed my life. I literally have sat in concerts in the bathroom knowing I needed to listen to Sabrina just for like 20 minutes because I needed to recenter myself. I kid you not.
Yeah. I think when I hear you talk, oftentimes the things that you say, I mean, you're very vulnerable and open and honest. And I think a lot of times I hear you say things that are like sort of like my internal dialogue. You're just better about articulating how you're feeling about things. But yeah, I mean, I can definitely identify just trying everything that seemed like it would work. I would stick with it until I couldn't. And then there would be, like you said, some sort of life experience that would derail the progress. Right. Because when you're restricting, when you're restricting and you're doing it in a healthy way, right? You have to control the environment. That's a big part of it. Like controlling the environment, preparing, planning, all that. And when you're having to work that hard, if there's any external change to your regimen, to your emotions, to anything, it does not take much to just throw that train right off the tracks. And
Completely.
I can definitely identify, and I know so many people can, with that down 30 up 40, down 30 up 40 cycle that I know that I lived on for the last 20 years. So let's talk, Mike, a little bit about at what point, like, did you and your doctor ever discuss the idea of maybe like bariatric surgery or other medications? What was it that ultimately led you to GLP-1?
Yeah, I mean, I thought about bariatric surgery. One of my good friends had it. I couldn't bring myself to altering my body for what I considered a moral failing. And I'd essentially given up hope. I come from a family loaded with heart health issues, right? Both my mother and father had heart attacks 2 years ago, like one at Christmas and one at Thanksgiving. Like it's, a real thing in my life. And I ballooned when the pandemic hit. I was in a odd situation in my life. My husband was one of the doctors on the front line when the pandemic first hit in Boston. He's a psychiatrist, but people think of them as people who deal with people on couches. But he was actually one of the few psychiatrists in the hospital dealing with COVID brain and helping people off respirators and,
Wow.
losing 7 patients in a day. And we live in a small condo. And I became sort of housebound. I lived in fear because the virus was walking in the house every day.
Right.
And so I went from that 280, 290 range up to 372. And I'd given up. I'd completely had given up on life. I had started to really do all the things necessary to prepare for a world where I wasn't going to be here and he financially needed to survive without me.
Yeah. I remember the video that you shared that. And I remember tearing up, just because I can identify with that feeling of being that out of control, feeling like I've tried everything. I've done all the things. I need to just be ready for an early grave.
Yep.
And I remember hearing you say that, and you verbalized in that moment something that I, at various points along my journey with obesity and now diabetes, have felt towards my family. Like, okay. And even today, like being a slower responder to the medications, feeling like this isn't it for me. Like, what do I need to do to make sure that everybody's okay when I'm gone? And I think some of that is natural as a dad. You want to make sure, like, anything could happen at any time. But I'm talking like to the point where where it's like consuming your thoughts. You're just convinced, almost like this is an inevitability.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God that has not been your story, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
That it was not an inevitability, and there was greater things on the horizon for your life and for you and for your husband. So tell me a little bit about how did you discover this thing called Mounjaro?
So I went to see a specialist. They noticed that my glucose levels had been high and I hadn't been seeing my primary care doctor. And so immediately when I heard the numbers, I assumed I had tipped into diabetes. I contacted my primary care doctor and I went in and I said, look, I don't know if I have it or not, but either way, I want Ozempic. I didn't know about Mounjaro, never heard of it. But I'd heard of Ozempic, right? All the celebrities were on it. He was trying to explain to me the difference between like Wegovy and Ozempic. And I'm like, we'll figure it all out. Let me know what you think and what the results are. He apparently emailed me. I never looked. At one point, about 4 weeks in, I got a text from CVS that there was a medication that started with MOU on to be picked up. And I remember having to go on Google and look up what that likely meant. And then I logged into my portal and realized my doctor had reached out to me there and not called on the phone, which was much more typical to do, especially with something so major. I remember being disappointed when I found out it was Mounjaro because it wasn't Ozempic.
I wanted Ozempic.
I wanted Ozempic. That's
what is this crap?
It's exactly what went through my mind. And so I went to TikTok and looked up how bad the side effects for Mounjaro were. And that's where I discovered the GLP-1 community there. And that's sort of how I ended up on it. I got no information. I emailed the doctor back and I said, like, what should I know about the medication? What should I know about diabetes? And he sent me a link to the American Diabetes Society webpage. That was what he did. And that was all I had for information before I went on TikTok.
Wow. Not super helpful. So you're diagnosed with diabetes. Were you surprised? I mean, it's in your family, right? But were you surprised? Were you surprised by it? Did your blood work show like a slow march towards diabetes, or was it just like, hey, I got diabetes now, I guess?
I was told I was pre-diabetic, probably just before the pandemic. And there was no explanation of what that was. There was just an assumption that I would understand what that meant. And so, no, and then apparently it was showing up across my blood work from this other specialist, and they weren't tracking it. It wasn't what they looked for, but someone eventually called it out to me. And that's what called my attention to it. Yeah.
So when you're sitting there with a prescription for Mounjaro, you go, ultimately to whatever sources you go to, TikTok, the interwebs, you're looking up all this stuff. Like, what was your biggest fear? Like, I always go back to me, I was a year into my diabetes journey, a year since diagnosis, and I'd tried all the things to control it on my own, and actually was controlling it pretty well with diet. I just wasn't losing weight. And I just remember being super, super excited, wanting to know more about it. Like, how does this thing work and what is it? But just super excited. Were you freaked out about that first injection? Did you have anxiousness over that?
I was, I knew a physician actually, who'd lost a significant amount of weight on it, but had developed pancreatitis a couple times actually. And so on Ozempic, and I was super, super nervous. I remember asking on TikTok, like, what I needed for, because what do I need for medications to like be aware of all the side effects? And before I went on, because I got the box, and I was going on vacation. I didn't want to take it before I went on vacation. I bought every kind of supply possible. I still have a shoebox here filled with prunes and Mago 7 and things that have never been touched because I was so scared of the med and its side effects, which is amazing to me now. Absolutely amazing. But it's true. Like, I'm almost team no side effects. I've had very limited side effects.
That's amazing. It's amazing that you've had very little side effects and you've had response, which we'll get into the response that you have, because usually it's like this axiomatic thing. The more side effects that one experiences, the more powerful the positive effects are too. But you have had low side effects and an amazing response, which is amazing. I just want to give a shout out to Spoonie Megumi. I don't know how many of you all are in our Discord. If you're not, you should be. You can get there by going to onthepen.com and scrolling down, and you can see it right there. But Spoonie, who we had on a few months ago, she's got an amazing story, but she's becoming a GLP evangelist in her own circle, which I love. I love just how, people are just influencing the people around them because their lives have been changed and they can't help but help other people change their lives. But Spoonie put together a gift package for a friend at work that is getting on the pen. And she just put all that stuff together for him. I mean, everything. She can put in the comments all the things she had, but she had everything from her favorite high protein snacks and beverages to her things that she takes for probiotics and prebiotics and nausea and all the things. And I just thought that was such a sweet thing to do, because I try to put myself in the headspace of like, how did I feel when I mean, it's 2 years ago now. I could barely remember what I ate for breakfast. So remembering how I felt 2 years ago is hard to recall. But
I love that idea.
Yeah, I just thought that was so sweet. So you take the first injection. How do you feel? Like, what? Just trying to help, because I know there's a lot of people watching probably just getting started on this med.
So 2.5 in the first 3 weeks did nothing for me at all. Like no noticeable difference. On the on shot day in the 3rd week, I thought what I felt was that lack of food noise, but it was only a day and a half of it. And on week 4, the 4th shot, at this point, I've already decided to move up to 5. It clicked. Like it just hit. And it was kind of instantaneous and it stayed. So it took me a while on 2.5. Like it wasn't like I instantly felt it. And it was amazing. Like the lack of food noise. It was, it's hard to explain to people what that is like when food suddenly doesn't control you. And how much you realize in your own mind that your cravings are not that moral failure, but they're your, it's a metabolic disorder and you can see it for the first time. I mean, it still takes a while for you to get there, but like, there's like this, what the hell is going on in my head kind of thing.
Right. Right. I think that we talked about it a little bit earlier on when Allie did her Reddit recap. Everybody joins on and they think like, I want to have my last hurrah. I want to eat the things that I want to eat, not realizing that like there's something in your brain that's off right now. Hormonally. I mean, the greatest obesity scientists right now still have not unlocked. They're scratching the surface. That's why we have these treatments, is because they're beginning to scratch the surface of what all physiologically is going on in the body of somebody who lives with obesity and metabolic dysfunction and disease. But there's something wrong. It's very similar to people who need a medication for depression, or, there's things that are not functioning the way that they do. And so I love thinking about that person who's like, jumping into their GLP-1 journey like they've jumped into every other thing they've done for 5, 10, 15, 20, 40 years of their life. And they're going, well, here's the next thing. Here's my last hurrah. I'm going to eat till I'm sick. And then I'm going to white knuckle and bear down. And I just love for them that they are about to get treatment for a disease. Yep. And their body's going to respond in a way that is going to allow them to take their wrists and knuckles and just go.
Yeah. What shocked me the most was when life hits again for the first time and something bad happens.
Because you're almost waiting for that shoe to drop, right?
Completely waiting for the shoe to drop. And it doesn't drop. It doesn't drop. And it's the weirdest thing because it always is what causes the diet to fail. Always.
Yeah. Always 100% of the time for me, that's the case. And, I kind of come back at this, from the slow responder perspective. Right. And I go, there are definitely elements of that I experienced very early on with this medication, but I'm going to need more long-term. Mm-hmm. But, I do think that, even now, when things start going the other way, like, cause I'm on 15 milligram dose of Mounjaro, still really well controlled diabetes, but I'm not experiencing weight loss. I don't really experience weight loss unless I restrict my calories down to a really low amount or I eat low carb. And what I've found that happens to me on this diet is like, I've gone low carb a few times, most recently in December, and I was doing really good and I was dropping a little bit of weight. But it was like, again, Christmas hit and then some family stuff and then like just lots of things. And then like the shoe does drop. And so it's kind of like the last month for me has been a reminder, but it's also even when those wheels fall off because I have the medication, it's not like it falls off into complete and utter disaster that it's just like, whoop, and I'm back up to this weight and I'm higher than I've ever been. The gift for me, and I think it's important to stress for people listening, that the gift of this medication is going to look different for every person who takes it. It's going to be different. For Mike, we'll get into what this has done for him from a weight loss perspective. But for me, it's been controlled diabetes and the fact that my highest weight, 319 pounds, since the day I took Mounjaro 2 years ago, I have never come close to that again. I've never been within more than 20 pounds of that, where the cycle for me before the med was 30 down, 40 up, 30 down, 40 up, 30 down, 40 up. I wouldn't go a 2-year period with, starting and then ending at a lower weight. It was always higher after, a period of time. And then you get the new set point, you drop back down, back up to the new set point, climb up, set a new set point. And that was the pattern. And so I have to remind myself that I have to be thankful that Mounjaro, that's the gift that it has given me.
That's life-changing.
It's life-changing. It's life-changing. And as much as it's difficult to want 100-pound weight loss or to see a number I haven't seen since high school, I have to remember that is prolonging my life, right? 100%.
The comparison part of this is the hardest part, in my opinion, right? Because look, my journey is not going to have me be in a body at 180. It's just not. Like Wonderland is not going to be a thing for me. And I see other people doing that. And I think the hardest part, Dave, in my opinion, I think this, is watching other people be on a journey that you want to be on,
sure,
and recognizing that your journey on this meds is going to look different.
Yeah.
It's hard.
100%. I can't remember whether this was in Sabrina's live panel. I think it was that we were talking about last week, but we were talking about the fact that one of the things that we have to reset our mind on is the fact that you can hit goal. You can hit or get to your goal, ideal range. For people who are getting there, it's not like that's the end of the road. It's the next thing. It's skin removal surgery. It's and not just cosmetically. I think of Jamie, Triplet Dad. He's been on like 3 different times. He's lost an insane amount of weight. Mm-hmm. He has medical issues now because of the weight loss and because of the extra skin. Like, it's not even going to be an option. It was really interesting to hear him talk. If y'all haven't caught that and you're like dealing with the issue of loose skin, I encourage you to go back and watch that conversation. It's very interesting. But, he's like, the difference between because he had bariatric surgery in addition to the GLP. And he's like, the thing about the bypass is like, I chose that for myself. He's like, I'm not going to get to choose for this. And it's a way more invasive, way harder to recover, way more pain. And he's like, and I'm not choosing that for myself. Like, I have to have it. And so it's just interesting because I think we all get in this mind, like there is a finish line to this. And in reality, the finish line only represents a new race. To whatever the next thing is. And even maintenance itself is not something with a finish line. It's something that is done daily. And that's why I thank Corey for sharing that, because I think for me, so far away from something like maintenance, it's hard to connect, but it's like, there's not really an end to any of this, right? We have to be able to appreciate where we're at and what the drug has done for us. So let's talk a little bit about that from your side of things, Mike. So you start Mounjaro at what's your starting weight? I think you said 370.
So I had lost about, from the time I got diagnosed to the time I actually started my box, I lost about 12 pounds, just restricting. So I started at 360.
Okay.
Yeah. I started at 360. And where have I gone since then? I'm now at 273.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're knocking on 100 pounds door.
Yeah. One away from my high of pre-diabetes, or when I got diagnosed.
Amazing. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. So how are the diabetic numbers? Oh
my God. My A1C went from 10.2 to 5.6.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I mean, that's prolonging your life. I mean, you had 2 relatives that lost both of their legs to diabetes.
Yeah. No, diabetes runs really strong in my family. So yeah.
That's amazing.
And the things that I'm most happy with, as much as I love the weight, and don't get me wrong, I do, it's my A1C.
Yeah.
It's my blood pressure being normal for the first time in 20 years.
Wow.
It's my cholesterol being down. It's
all the whole picture.
It's that stuff. I mean,
health.
Like I said, I'm fully loaded for heart issues in my family.
Yeah.
Both parents had heart attacks. Both grandfathers had heart attacks. Both grandmothers had strokes, right? Like, I'm in a situation where, there's the heart test that a lot of people are starting to have called lipoprotein little a, and you can see people who are genetically loaded for heart disease, and I'm genetically loaded. That my cardiologist actually did the test. And so seeing my heart health feel like that, I no longer feel like I'm waiting for that heart attack that I thought was coming in the next year.
Yeah. What a freeing feeling. One of the things I always say to people when they explain their stories, it's just the same phrase pops into my head every time. You got your life back.
Mm-hmm.
You literally got your life back, because living in constant fear of dying is no life.
Nope.
You're not living at that point. You're planning to die.
Yeah. And I couldn't walk. I honestly couldn't walk 2 blocks without being in pain. I would plan walking from my car into the grocery store and how I was going to not put myself in pain.
Mm-hmm.
And the amazing part about these meds is even before you lose the weight, for some people, the inflammation just goes away and suddenly you can do the work that you couldn't.
Yeah. You're not hurting all the time.
No. I was in California this weekend. I went to Disney for a day and I walked around the entire day, running around stairs, going on rides, and not thinking twice about it. And when I tell you the last time, 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, when I was at Disney, my husband thought I was going to be on a scooter the next time because I was in so much pain.
Wow. And that is no easy pill to swallow.
Nope.
Yeah, that's rough. Amazing. I mean, it's just amazing to hear these stories about people getting their life back. And I constantly find myself so thankful for the scientists and the people with the knowledge and the fortitude to develop these medications. I'm so thankful, and I'm in awe. I mean, if you go back to, pre-Ozempic, the drug companies didn't want to touch these drugs because basically they're like, there's no way that the insurance companies will ever see this as anything but cosmetic. So there was no motivation to develop treatments. And I'm just so thankful that these scientists just went after it and kept pulling, and that ultimately these companies saw the value in investing in them, because the amount of people who have stories just like yours and mine are just it's crazy how many lives are being changed. Let's talk a little bit about the moment that you decided, I want to put this on the internet. What, like, for you, what was it? Was it just like this desire to be evangelistic about what you were experiencing? Was it just a desire for community? Was it just curiosity? What made you go, I want to put this on the internet?
It was the community. I was sitting in lives for a couple people, Jackson, who I know, Will, there's a few other guys. There weren't a lot of men out here talking about it. And I knew I needed help. And I knew that when I had done Weight Watchers back in the day, that the support system in those rooms was integral to the success that I had at that time. Right. And so the other piece of it was, I knew if I spoke it into the universe, that part of the motivation I would have for success was not being embarrassed to fail in front of people. And let me be honest. I mean, I was trying to hide. I was trying to figure out if I could be on the internet and not have everyone in my life know about it. And TikTok's really good at that. But I literally showed up in my life. Everyone knows me as Michael. No one knows me as Mike. I wore baseball hats and beer t-shirts, which in my life was not me. But I was like, I need to be in this space and in community, and let me try and see if I can just sort of pass through the radar, so that if someone actually saw me and scrolled by, they're like, that's not him.
That's not Mike. Mike wouldn't wear that hat.
Never. Yeah. So, and that's what it was. I needed community. I needed a safe space, and I needed other guys to see, and I realized I might need to be one of those guys in order to have that occur, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Um,
100%.
yeah. And I remember the first time I filmed a video, like I didn't even know if I could actually hit send on it. Like it was like, okay, I did it, but would I actually post it? And I did, and it got a lot of reception.
Yeah. It's so authentic. You're just such an authentic guy. And there's just like everything you say is so loaded with empathy and understanding and care for people. And I think that really, it's not an easy thing to fake. And so it really, when it's genuine, it shows through. And I think that is where you have really resonated with the community. I think one of the cool things that Mike does all the time is like the second that Mike sees that there is a new creator on TikTok, he will light him up. He will do a video on him. He'll post about him, and he'll say, you got to find this person because this person's content is really great. And here's why. And I think that's just obviously part of who you are. And I think that is a really special thing. I mean, because a lot of people, when they get to, did I get that right, Mike, on a mission too?
Yep. Oh no, it's Mike on a mission. So you're missing the on, but Mike on a mission too.
Mike a mission. Sorry. This is what happens when you do things on the fly. We had some technical difficulties today. It was people were asking, and I did not want to miss an opportunity to pop this up here.
Thank you.
There we go. Mike on a mission too, right?
Yep. YouTube and TikTok.
Okay. YouTube and TikTok. But yeah, I think that for the community, it's such a value to have somebody who's not like just hoarding, likes and follows for themselves, is willing to sort of elevate other creators. And because everybody has a story to tell. I was just telling the followers today, we do like a little live stream with my members on the YouTube channel before we go live. And I was like, it's crazy how many creators are popping up in the GLP-1 world, because it's like, there's so many that, all it takes is the right person getting connected with the right content. And they go, I could do that. I could make content. I could share my story. And it's just, there's so much power in community and so much power in like, even hearing you tell your story tonight and just like identifying like, yep, definitely dealt with that. Yep. Definitely experienced that. And just like, it's so helpful. But I really appreciate the way that you're always folding in those new creators, because, it's like, you might have somebody, Jenny from the block is in your live stream tonight. And then tomorrow she's making content and she's Jenny, my GLP-1 journey, and she's talking about this, and somebody's going to come pick up her videos. And like, I think like one of the huge things that we're trying to do it on the pen is like, let's get this message outside of the bubble, outside of the social media bubble, because there's so many more people out there. There's 100 million people in the United States alone living with obesity. And, a lot of those people are on the same track that you are. They're genetically predisposed to diabetes. They're going to end up with it. They're going to have lifelong disease. And once you have diabetes and severe metabolic dysfunction, there's all the cascading things, the heart disease, the strokes, the heart attacks, the sleep apnea, all of the things. And those people are going to have a chance to never have to even, that's not their lot in life right anymore. It doesn't have to be. And so I appreciate what you do just to highlight the new creators that are always coming around. And I just think that that's just who you are. And I think your compassion and generosity just really shows through your content. So I hope you'll all go over and give Mike a follow over on TikTok. And you said you've got a YouTube channel over here too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So are you posting to it? A lot of TikTok people
I've posted a bunch. No one wants to follow me there, but
it's hard. It takes a while on YouTube to get traction. And especially when your brain's wired, you put out a video on, I get mad when I only get 1,000 views on a TikTok video. And you think about that, that's 1,000 people. That's a lot of people.
Yeah,
But
that's a lot
when
of
your
people.
brain starts getting wired for that, it's very hard to come over on YouTube and get 32 32 views on a video or something.
Then that's my story. Yeah.
But
And
you just got to stick to it. You just got to stick to it.
followers. Yeah.
So Mike on a mission 2. Mike, if you give one piece of advice to somebody who's starting the journey, there's a lot of advice out there, and there's a lot of bad advice out there.
Mhm.
But what advice would you give to somebody who's maybe stumbling across this video tonight, who's just learning about these medications, maybe just got their prescription, it says MOUN instead of Ozempic, and they're like, what is this? What's your advice for that person just getting started?
So while it's great to follow the other creators who are going on the life experience on here on these sites, look for the doctors first. Your doctor may not know a lot, but there are a lot of doctors and medical providers on here sharing really, really good information. I could give you all the basic advice about fiber and water.
Let's list some of those too,
Sure.
just to be clear, because there's a lot of good doctors out there that are making content on this stuff, and I think like we should. Who are they in your opinion?
So you had Dr. Simon Lee on last week. She's actually my cardiologist. She was the first person I found here. She literally had a video that said, "Did your doctor just hand you a box of Ozempic or Mounjaro and not give you any advice?" And then she went through it for 10 minutes. That was what I needed in that moment, and she eventually became my own cardiologist.
Amazing.
Dr. Matea Rentea.
Yeah,
Absolutely phenomenal obesity med doctor, has a podcast called The Obesity Guide by Dr. Matea Rentea. Dr. Ali Novitsky, A-L-I Novitsky, with the Fit Collective. She has a podcast as well. She is phenomenal. I use her workout program. She's great. Dr. Why can't I think of her first name? Dr. Galindo out of San Antonio, Texas. Absolutely amazing content. She and Dr. Rentea themselves are people living with the disease of obesity and are very, very good at talking about this because they understand it. Dr. Mike Herring, he started out more recently. He's a doctor out of Vanderbilt. He's someone with type 1 diabetes and himself is down 100 pounds from when he was since he was a teenager. Also understands it, has some really, really great content out there. There's a lot. Dr. Krista Gonzalez. There's a number of obesity med doctors out there who really can be helpful in this journey.
Yeah. And I'll just, Marilyn
Galindo.
Yeah. I'll just throw out too, Dr. Spencer Nadolsky's been on this program a couple of times. Dr. Spencer's really great. Dr. Beverly Chang, maybe Dr. Beverly Chang might be one of my favorite, most compassionate, like fired up about just getting rid of the disease of obesity and calling it what it is and taking the stigma away. And she's just such a sweet person. Those are a couple of my personal faves as well. So I kind of cut you off, but I just thought it was important because I think it's really good information. There are some really good doctors making content that can supplement, right, that lack of information that might be, especially from PCPs. Like PCPs, they're a jack of all trades and a master of none. They've probably all heard of these medications by now, but frankly, most of them have too much to worry about to get into the weeds on this stuff. And thankfully, there are some of these great doctors like the ones mentioned tonight that can help supplement that and have really good content. And lots of them come on this show. And so you can hear from some of them here. So we talked about following good doctors, and then you were starting to talk a little bit about, we could talk about side effects and stuff, but it seems like you're going to take it another direction.
No, I was just going to say, like, those are the people I think that can make your journey meaningful, just because of what you said. Most doctors have 10 patients on this and don't have the experience of the people who see hundreds of patients on these. And the fact that they come here and give themselves freely to the community, giving advice because they know there's a deficit, give them a follow. Those are the people to start listening to, because those of us on the journey, it's hard to discern which of us is going to be giving you good information and which of us is giving you just our own specific case. And doctors, the doctors and nurses, Coach Tedder, Nurse Tedder on here is phenomenal too. So I'll just throw that out.
Yeah, great. I think we touched on this a little bit earlier in talking about like you as a kid and how people around you just kind of don't understand why you struggle with your weight because they think that you're the same as them and have the same experiences, and you don't. I think the same can be said about content creation. Like that's maybe the downside of the fact that Jenny from the block today will be Jenny on a GLP-1 journey, is that sometimes, and I use Jenny as a euphemism. She's also my wife's, it's also my wife's name. But tomorrow she is talking about like how to manage side effects and when to dose up and how much to take and whatever. And like, that's kind of stuff that you should be running by your doctor 100% of the time. That said, the community can be a great resource to let you know what to expect and what they've used to help them overcome that stuff. But sometimes it does tread into the, you shouldn't be talking about this, Jen, territory. But yeah, really, really great information, Mike. Again, you can follow Mike at mike.onamission2 on both TikTok and YouTube. We'll throw that up again. Mike, anything else you wanted to mention before we hang it up for the night?
No, but thank you so much. And if you haven't bought Dave's book, buy Dave's book.
Thank you for the book. Look, I think people have to think I put people up to it. I don't. I swear.
Can I say one more thing? And I mean this very sincerely. I don't think people appreciate how much of a role you played in releasing the vials, right? And you got a lot of crap for it, sir, including for me at times. And I just want to say the fact that the vials are coming out up to 10, like, it's not just a news story you report on, it's a news story you're a part of. And we as a community, thank you for that.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. It's definitely is one of those things where people like, have a lot of opinions about it. But at the end of the day, what I want is I want everybody to have access to safe medication that helps treat their disease. Right. And the fact is we have a broken system that everybody's operating in. And I don't think that the answers are ever as easy as people want them to be, right? It's not as easy as they should just be cheap for everyone. Then the question is like, how cheap should they be, right? I mean, there's a lot of nuance, but
I would like UK cheap. That would be
UK cheap. I mean, at the end of the day, I think that would make a lot of sense, but we would need reform here, right? We need reform. We need to get rid of the PBMs. We need a way for our government to arbitrate the cost that Americans, not just Americans on Medicare for a select amount of drugs, but we need a way for America to arbitrate on the behalf of Americans for what the cost of medication should be, the way that other countries can. It's not there are no easy answers. I guess that's where I get the most frustrated, Mike, is like everybody to their corners on this stuff politically. And the reality is it's just, there's so much nuance and very few easy answers, but we've got to do better.
There is one bipartisan issue, and that is PBM reform. Like, yes. I think that's something
everybody seems to agree. The middlemen. We've got to get rid of the middlemen.
That's right.
Yes. If we could get rid of the middlemen, that would go a long way. A long way.
I'm all for the bipartisan issues, and that's one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's get it done. Let's get PBM reform done. In the meantime, I appreciate what you had to say about that. It's very kind of you. Thanks for being here, Mike. Thank you for what you do for the community. Thank you for who you are. You're just a good guy, a good man. And it's been a pleasure to get to know you a little bit. And I hope someday that we get to do this in person, like you're saying earlier.
That'd be awesome, Dave. Thank you so
buddy.
much.
Thank you. Have a good night. Mike on a mission. Please make sure you give him a follow. Like right now, like I'm going to just, if I had Jeopardy music to play right now, I would, but I didn't. This is the time where you go over and you type at Mike.onamission2 into your YouTube browser. You click it and then you hit subscribe and then you come back and then drop in the comments and let Mike know that you're subscribed now. And he's going to get more than 32 views on the next video that he does because it deserves a lot more views than 32. But this is the struggle of YouTube. Thank you, folks, for being here. Thank you for being the best part of what we do at On the Pen. I hope that you enjoyed the show tonight. I thank you to my friends, Sabrina, who does our Friday night panels. You can definitely jump over to the playlist I have set up and you can watch them on demand now. That is the beauty of the Friday night live panel. If you want to join, I believe the next one is not tomorrow, but it is next Friday. They do every other week. So Thank you to Sabrina for doing that. Thank you to Corey for her maintenance minute. Thank you to Allie for her Reddit recap. Thank you to Mike for joining us tonight and giving us some of his time. And thank you to each and every one of you for being here and for being the best part of what we do at On the Pen. Couldn't, wouldn't, and shouldn't do it without you. Now, until next week, my prayer for you, my friends, is that the Lord would bless you and keep you. May he cause his face to shine upon you and be so gracious to you. Have a great, wonderful, and amazing week. We'll catch you on the next one.